book Far From the Tree, which of course it was an Audible exclusive. So you could tell us a bit more about that, please, Rob.
Of course. Of course, yeah. It was never. I'd never sat down to write an audio exclusive book. It was just how it all came about. I'd written it because I had a story that I really wanted to tell. You know, like sometimes you have a story that you've just got to get off your chest.
Yeah.
And it was definitely one of those moments where it was, I've got this idea and I've got to get it out. And I wrote it just like I would a normal novel, except that I really tried to do something that was a bit of a departure for me, a bit of a like, come on, Rob, it's time to grow up a bit now, do something a bit, harder, a bit heavy hitting, perhaps.
Yeah.
Then it went out on submission, like, just like any other book. And I was amazed when, Audible picked it up, and absolutely delighted. And the whole process from there has run very much like you would a traditional publishing deal, except no print. And you were talking about casting decisions rather than when's the book, when can we get like arcs of the book or something like that. So no, it's been a great process, Alex. It's been brilliant.
I've always been fascinated to find out how it's done, because I've only ever interviewed one author and the narrator on my website before. So it's really an interesting world, which I don't know a lot about, which is crazy considering that's what I do for 5 years.
No, well, it's amazing that I had so many preconceptions going into it as well that I was wrong about. Like I thought it would go one way and it totally went another. What I did notice though is that I was so happy working with Audible because they were so turned on and so switched on to things like market trends and stuff like that, like who's listening to what at this point in time and how we can best position this book to do well and stuff like that. So I learned so much going through it. And when it came down to the casting process, they gave me three suggestions, and they were all quite good. But I obviously had my mind set on one person. Yeah, and so I suggested it to them, and they only went and got him. So I was amazed.
Yeah, could you tell us the story about that, how that came about?
Of course, yeah. Well, I box recreationally here. Well, I box for charity, and so that means I was in the gym constantly at the time that I was writing this book, and this was about 3 years ago now. And I'm doing my routines on one side of the gym with my coach, and on the other side of the gym was a guy I thought I recognised from the telly. I was convinced of it, and it was his name was Warren Brown, and he was in Luther, and he was in Strike Back, that's on Sky, and loads of other stuff, Hollyoaks as well. And I knew that he was a lad from my hometown, which is Warrington, and I thought I'd always had an idea to set this book here in my hometown, and I've always had an idea of who I might want to feature in that, if it ever got made into something or anything like that. It always plays in the back of your mind. So I went over to him and introduced myself and said, "Hi mate, forgive me, just want to say hello, and I'm going to try and get my agent to come to you about something soon." And he must get it all the time, because he was like, "Yeah, no worries mate, right, we'll carry on," and he pressed on with what he was doing. And then it stuck there, and it was a name to a face for him, so that when 3 years later I said to Audible, "Can you go and get Warren Brown, or at least try and approach him?" He knew who I was. So it was like playing the long game for 3 years. And he said yes, because it was a project set in Warrington that you never get anything like this set here. Never anything at all.
I was going to mention the competition. I mean, we had Warrington. I've to put in another question now.
Yeah, I can do another question. I've got a reserved question in mind. Yeah.
Okay, if you could say the reserved question, because we've got a competition to get an Audible code for the book.
Yeah. So whoever gets this right the quickest will end up. Yeah, I'm going to send you a code that you just type it into Audible, and the audiobook just whizzes straight down through magic or whatever. But the question is, we'll see if anyone can get this. The book opens with the discovery of a mass grave, and how many bodies are in there?
Really good question.
Yeah, it might be a bit tough. And the only hint I've got is it's actually my mum and dad's lucky number. That's not going to help anyone get it. But yeah, because I picked this idea of a mass grave because I wanted to get the series off with a bang, so to speak.
Oh,
Someone
definitely happened. Yeah.
It did. Someone said it. It just says Facebook user here to me, but yeah.
That's some going. Whoever got that quickly.
Whoever got that, you've got a free copy coming your way. Well done. Fabulous.
Yeah. So why did you decide on 27 now it's out there?
Yeah, I decided on it because I really wanted. I decided if I started with something very, very heavy. Oh, well done, Rachel Jane. Well done. I can't wait to send you a code. If I went off with a bang, then the whole series can go from there. You know, if you have a grave full of 27 people and you don't know who any of them are, and all their identities are a mystery, the potential to tell stories and to sort of derive drama from that is very easy. You know, so
yeah,
I also wanted it to be a shock. You know, sometimes, you know, you play puppet master when you're writing, don't you? And I really wanted to, you know, play with people's emotions and get them shocked and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I definitely went for it from the beginning with this one.
Yeah, there was a reference to Richard III. Were you trying to beat that, I think?
yeah. The last mass grave in the country being his. Yeah.
Yeah. Why was family dynamics so important to the book, would you say?
I think when I first started writing, I'd recently become, writing trying to make a career of it. I'd recently become a father, and it changed obviously everything about my entire life. And I've grown, I think, you know, those who know me well will say I haven't grown up at all, which is equally accurate, but I've matured in certain ways that mean that fatherhood and parenting are things that are they're cornerstones of who I am. And they mean everything to me. But you can't pick your family, can you? You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. And it's that sort of forced camaraderie at times. Not saying that I have that with my own family, who I adore to pieces, but you can easily get drama from the family setup because you love them, but you don't necessarily have to like them. You know what I mean? You know, and you can, the stakes are always high when family is involved. And I love those lines that are so grey between us in a family that bind us so tightly. And I just like exploring all of that constantly.
Was there any elements that you learned from the Ben Bracken series before writing this one?
Definitely. Certainly, when talking about the craft, you know, I mean, craft is a grand word, but, you know, like learning how to do this, you know, because I learned so much doing that. And Ben Bracken, you know, he's coming back. He'll be back in December. But it's one of those things where I felt like I couldn't, when I started writing Ben Bracken, I couldn't have written this story. It was only after writing 5 books that I could sit and write this. So I had to start somewhere. I started there. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I think if we're talking about themes, Ben Bracken, the further you go into the series, he gets his taste of family dynamic and fatherhood and things like that, which it must be a thing that's like at the moment something I'm drawn to. So it just, you know, I keep finding there's something more I want to write about, more I want to say about on that topic. So while it's there, I'm just good. Yeah, it just keeps cropping up.
Yeah, and there's overlapping themes between the Ben Bracken series and Far From the Tree.
Yeah.
Do you think that there'll be more, or?
Yeah, I think. Well, Far From the Tree, is going to be a trilogy. It's contractually obliged to be a trilogy. I'm really happy to say. So I get to think of this on a much grander canvas than I usually would do. So I can think of it rather than trying to condense a big story into say 100,000 words or whatever, I can think of, well, no, we can look at maybe 300,000 words now on which to tell this story, and think of it as a really huge blank canvas to go at. Whereas Ben Bracken, I think, I've got a really fabulous relationship with my wonderful publishers, Loom Books, who they just have a really, we approach it one book at a time, and it's just they're happy to put them out as long as I'm keeping writing them. So Ben Bracken he's back in a book called The Watchman, which is coming out, and I think we're aiming for 14th of December, I think, but there'll be an announcement about that in due course.
Is there any news on when the first Ben Bracken book will be turned into audio?
You're asking me a question here, Alex. I think I'm hoping there'll be news soon.
Yeah.
Because with the reception, I've been really lucky with the reception to Far From the Tree, because people have asked where are my other books in audio, and that's given me a little bit of ammunition to go to Audible with and say, what do you think? Come on, let's have a look at this. So I'd like to think that we'll have this conversation soon, and I might be able to tell you something a bit more definitive. What I can say, though, is that I did write a book called Crooks Hollow, which is a standalone, and that is coming to audio later this year.
What's the difference, you would say, between writing a standalone and a series, then?
I don't have to remember what someone did 4 books ago in a standalone. I don't have to remember the name of someone who lives over there, or did this or did that, because I'm already. I mean, Ben Bracken is on book 5. I don't know how people who've been going for 16, 17, 20 books with the Reacher series. How do you keep track of all the people and places he's been? I don't know. I'm gonna have to build a dossier or something like that, I think. No, to be honest, with writing a standalone, it was like the gloves are off. You can just do anything you want. It was loads of fun. And I wrote a character in that I really grew to love, who was a Maasai warrior who'd come over here to become a detective. I really had this idea for a really, one of a kind of character.
Yeah.
And I brought him back, and he features in Ben Bracken 4 as well, because I like that idea of a universe, I'm not saying like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but my own little world where it overlaps and intertwining, and characters go over there, and I love all that stuff.
So how close are they in location to allow a universe to work? Very
good question. I think the standalone Crooks Hollow took place I invented a place called Crooks Hollow because it's loosely based on the village I grew up in, and I didn't want anyone to hate me for it. So I just changed the name entirely, but the geography of it is exactly the same. In this fictional world, you will find a grave in Far From the Tree, probably about 10 minutes down the road from Crooks Hollow, but the Crooks Hollow hasn't been mentioned in the book. And obviously Ben Bracken is, he's living just off Manchester at the moment as well. So they're all in my little pocket up here. I'm going to have to spread my wings and take them somewhere else, I think.
Well, if you did that, then Northern Crime Syndicate would be a bit hard if you spread your wings.
Well, that's right, wouldn't it? Yeah. Although I know that I can tell you that The Watchman, I really wanted to take Ben Bracken to America. So that's what's happening in number 5. I just wanted to do that. He's so set in his ways about certain things, and I just wanted to stick him in the middle of Manhattan and just see what he could get up to.
Well, how was it researching America with lockdown and things and everything going on there?
Well, this is the really difficult one in a way, because I've been lucky enough to go to New York before. And I just love that city. I just found it incredible. And forgive me if you can hear a little one crying at the door.
Don't worry about that.
I'm so sorry. He's worked out where I am. You see, this is what we were talking about, Alex.
Well, you can come and say hello if you want. So don't mind.
No, you'll never get rid of him. This is why I often retreat to the pub over the road, Alex. This is. But I think American sensibilities are what I really wanted to look into. And it was so much fun that, usually when I write one of these things over here, Ben Bracken finds it very difficult to get his hands on a gun. And as soon as he gets to
Yeah.
America, if he needs a gun, like, hang on, have you got one? He's like, well, yes, of course, it's America. Bingo, problem solved. Guns are absolutely everywhere. So no, I've had a load of fun with that. And I worried about what to do, because it's set at the end of this year, what to do about, the COVID question. How do I attack that question? And I decided that, well, if they've not really had much of a response to it, it won't really feature in the book. It was quite easy, in the end.
Yeah.
You just have to make an illusion that, the powers that be might not have handled it that great. And then away we go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just become more complicated near your area up there as well, hasn't it?
It had, yeah. We're just out of it by about sort of, maybe I would say 20 miles, something like that. But it's, again, like we were discussing, where do you draw the line? Where is that boundary line?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So I'm certainly not going to be getting in my car tonight and testing that boundary. I'm just going to stay put.
Yeah. I mean, 17 weeks I was in lockdown till
Mate,
last week.
It's sort of one of a kind, this era, isn't it? In a way,
It is, yeah.
Trying to explain it to someone in the future is going to be really hard.
How did you find writing in lockdown? Easier or harder than normal?
Well, I can show you if you like, because the day that Boris sat down, and the day that Boris said we're in lockdown, I started. I've thrown so much stuff off my desk there, but I started. The Watchman, and there we are. So, and that I finished it maybe 3.5, 4 weeks ago, and it needs a lot of TLC, and we're getting there with it. It's improving. But so I managed a draft during lockdown, and I've got to be honest, it's taught me a lot of things, that I can't be precious with time. If I have an opportunity to write, I've got to take it. It doesn't matter if, like a moment ago, the kids are screaming. I've got to write. I've got to get it done. So it's just kept me honest. Actually, kept me honest with myself, kept me driven. Although I found myself busier than ever. With lockdown, I mean, it's just burnout.
Yeah, because you've got Northern Crime Syndicate, and you've also got Blood Brothers podcast too.
Yeah, I mean, the total at the moment is it was such an honor to be a part of the Northern Crime Syndicate, but there's the Blood Brothers podcast, and again, it was a massive honor to be asked to be a part of that, and that's just been so much fun. And but I'm also a regular voice on the For Your Reconsideration film podcast, and I'm also on the Really 007 James Bond film podcast as well. Oh. So I just, there's not enough hours in the day at the moment, to be honest, mate.
Yeah. How do you find researching for that? Because of course you've got to read the books by the authors.
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes. Again, it's made me a better reader. I can read quicker now, and I get distracted less, because you don't have time to, I don't have time to get distracted. So you have to, for Blood Brothers, you have to read at least one a week, because you don't want to have, like we had Harriet Tice on a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, well, I'm definitely going to have, it's Harriet Tice, I'm definitely going to be reading that by the time she comes on, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same, and it's great, because I hadn't met half the people that have come on, and they've just been so lovely. I mean, as we both know, the crime community is just, it's one of a kind, isn't it, in terms of how friendly and inclusive it is. Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe I've reached about 20 of these. It's just
yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I was honoured to get the call as well. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm just wondering how it's been to juggle all three. It must be a bit of a nightmare working out what you're researching for one.
Yeah, it's really strange, actually, Alex. And I also, when I'm not writing my own stuff, because I put my foot down a long while ago and said, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to be full time at this. And to do that, I've had to sort of diversify hugely my writing output. So I ghostwrite biographies on the side. So at the moment, I've got 3, possibly 4 of those going on at the same time, where I've got to write, a few thousand words of a certain chapter for that. and it's all like that's all very diverse as well. And then I've got a Ben Bracken book, obviously, that I'm editing at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got to put pen to paper on the sequel to Far From the Tree as well. So it is hard, and I think it's only through doing something do you learn how to do it, I think. And there's nothing special about doing this. It's just you put yourself in a corner where it's like, I've agreed to do it now, so I've got to do it. I don't have any choice. I'm just gonna have to do it. I remember talking to Neil Broadfoot about this, and Neil said that he backed himself into a corner with one of his books and said, I can get you a first draft next week. And he hadn't done anything. He just had to pummel this book out in such a record time. And that's the way I see it. But also, if I want this to be, I viewed this like, this might go away tomorrow. This might blow up in my face, and I'll, and I'd go back and get the job that I had previously or whatever. And then, but while there's an opportunity, I've got to take it with both hands, and I don't want to have any regrets. So if I have to juggle now, I don't want to have any regrets further down the line that I didn't try hard enough to make this happen. So
what was the start? What was the seed that brought about Ben Bracken?
Great question. The military's always been part of the family from my grandparents. So, where my grandpa was commando in World War II. My grandfather was a 16-year-old RAF man at the end of World War II, who'd, perhaps told a porcupine about his age to get where he wanted to be, that kind of thing. And I just admired them so much. And it stuck with me that, and I wanted to be involved in the military myself, but I've got, I don't have the best knees in the world through a footballing injury. So I got to a point where I'd been writing all sorts of rubbish in my, I was a van driver at the time, and I was writing all sorts of rubbish in my van, parked up in Tesco's car park all over the place, getting a sandwich and sitting there writing in the front cab. And I was just writing for pleasure, really enjoyed it. And then I started thinking, no, I've got an idea here, really have an idea, because I had 3 friends come back from Afghanistan, one after the other, and three of them had changed in 3 very, very different ways. One said he was born to do it. He came back and he was like, no, that's exactly what I was put on this earth to do. And it didn't change him really in any way. It was a fulfillment of the prophecy of his life, essentially. Another one came back and he just couldn't go through a trip to the pub without having flashbacks. It had damaged him mentally that much. And then the third one came back and, we're not in touch anymore, so I can say it, but like it turned him into a psychopath. Like the bloodlust just got to him. And it's just, they'd all been sent home and said, right, thanks for everything. You've got to go get a normal job now. And I just, how on earth do you do that? You've gone over there and given everything. And it's cost you, certainly in 2 of those cases, so mentally, so much that, how do you pick things up? How do you go on? So I started thinking about a soldier coming home, and then family dynamic came in. What if his parents rejected him because of something he'd done over there? And then gradually Ben Bracken sort of eked his way out of that. I started writing short stories about it, just to sort of test the water and whatever. And I self-published them to begin with. And I self-published the first 2 Ben Bracken books before we eventually got a deal. So yeah, that was it. But it was really, I had this footballing injury meant I was out of work for 18 months, and I devoted that time to writing these 2 books. So I had something to show for it. I was determined that there'd be a silver lining to the injury, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Was there any changes between the self-published version of the Ben Bracken to when you put it into publication?
Oh yeah, man, definitely. The first, for a start, I was rejected 250 times by agents when I stopped counting. So I carried on after that, because it was like realizing, in terms of criticism, I'm untouchable. As in, I want to get better, and constructive criticism will make me get better. But if you're going to be dead rude about it, then brilliant, because that just fuels me. That makes me just want to go and beat you. So back then it was like, of that 250 that I sent out in the first wave, 200 didn't reply at all. 40 did and said thanks but no thanks, and 10 got back and were really, really rude. These were agents as well. Really rude, like, you'll never amount to anything, that you've got no original voice, give up now, don't send me anything again, you're wasting my time, that kind of stuff. And it was crazy, and I thought, like, wow, I could properly give up here, but I didn't. So now I know, now that I've got that shield, I just love it when you tell me I'm rubbish, so much so that if I have these 1-star review mugs that I put my favorite reviews on of people telling me I'm rubbish, like, 1 star, this, don't buy it, it's not a page turner. There you go. Every morning with the coffee. But that's, it's about making positives out of negatives, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll be selling those, won't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean give me 1-star reviews because it's going to make me happy,
Yeah. It's kind of really weird to be doing research generally through synopsises, because if people don't know, I only read through audio, so I've researched your books through synopsises. So if you could tell us a little bit about the Ben Bracken series and why, and to tempt us to buy a few copies of
Of course. Right. Well, I've got a few behind me here. So we start off with A Wanted Man, which is on the left-hand side over here that you're looking at, and that was Ben Bracken breaking out of Strangeways prison with a bag of evidence that will cement his freedom, and coming up against organised crime. Mort Point followed that, and that one is starts off at a plane wreck off of the Devonshire coastline. I just think it's beautiful down there, and I wanted to drop a plane off it, basically. So I had loads of fun with that, and it ends up, with in a race against time across London, involving a car. How shall I put it? An item. A piece of cargo that's very delicate and has huge implications. Then we go to the Penny Black, which was about I wanted to take him to the Norfolk Broads because I love that area of the world as well, but I also wanted to try to challenge myself to write an action sequence on a river where the speed limit is 4 miles per hour. So you know how those boats chug along. I thought, how can I make that exciting and interesting? And then lastly, is Till Morning Is Nigh, and that came out just at Christmas time, because my publisher said to me, what do you want to write about for Ben Bracken 4? And I said, I've kind of got like this idea for Die Hard in a primary school. And they said, okay. And then 3 days later, they sent me a contract. And that was it. And it didn't have a title on it. It just said Die Hard in a primary school at the top. So I sort of had to come up with it from there. So they're the 4 ones. What I realized, though, is that to try and make my... I get asked about this quite a bit, about how do you make Ben Bracken different from other man on a mission, series that are out there, because there's so many fantastic ones, so many great ones. And truthfully, if I were to try and emulate any of that, you'd be selling yourself short, because what they've done is just so great. But I've tackled it in my own way by trying to cram a sort of a meaningful character arc for Ben Bracken in there. So when you start meeting him, he's very much a lone wolf. But by the time we get to the 4th book, he's celebrating the birth of his first child before he gets dragged into all sorts of trouble. And that's mellowed him quite a bit. And he's trying to come up, he's butting up against sort of domesticity a little bit, nappy changing versus guns, that kind of stuff. And so I've crammed all that in 4 books, and I keep intending to do that because I think it just keeps it fresher for the reader. I wonder what he's up to this time. What's his start point this time? So rather than just start from the same place every time, I try to move it forward at quite a rate. But I've had huge fun writing them. I get to really stretch the sort of action adventure legs a little bit with them, maybe play with a little bit of conspiracy theory with them, definitely have fun. And all I want to do ever is entertain. You know, if I were to say that I'm on this planet to give a big message, no, I'm here. I just want to tell a great story and entertain you. That's all I want to do.
What would you say is the biggest change since you started working with editors? Because of course the first two you did yourself.
Yeah, well, a wanted man behind us. From the first edition that was self-published, that's draft 46 of that. So it was 46 different drafts to get it publishable.
Yeah.
And it was just yeah, I love the edit process when I don't like going through it and editing it myself, but I love getting the edits back from my editor, because you look at them like, oh, I can make this so much better now, because having a fresh pair of eyes on it, sometimes you get so, I don't know, crushed up inside about it, so connected to it that you can't separate yourself from it at all. And certainly with that manuscript of The Watchman, that's how I feel about it at the moment. I'm so deep into it that I can't extract myself from it. So I'm really looking forward. It'll be in next week for Loom to take a look at, and I can't wait for some feedback, because that's how you make these things better. So yeah, I'm determined to have a more of a love relationship with editing rather than a love-hate relationship with it.
I must admit, I do find that a bit of a challenge, because I work with four people on my books, and
yes.
they're not even published yet. So I can't imagine what it'd be like when I get editors in there too.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I think we all worry about the red pen moment, but I'm determined to look at it like a good thing. Because no words wasted. It's a cliche, but you can fix anything that you've written. You can't fix something you've not written. You can't fix a blank page. So definitely, I'm definitely of that school of thinking. It feels like I'm drumming it in myself a little bit here. Like, yes, Rob, you do love it. You do love it.
Speaking of blank pages, as part of the Northern Crime Syndicate, we did. I think you've done 2 events where we started a book from scratch between us, you and the audience, and.
Yeah, that's ballooned from. I do quite a bit of work in schools, just trying to get kids reading, and trying to get kids telling stories. And I came up with this exercise that I do with them. That is just, because I realised that so many of them, the love of stories is gone. Their love of just the sheer joy of creating something just isn't there anymore. So, for example, I was with a group of 6-year-olds and I said, "What's in a story?" to them, and one kid put their hand up and said, "Compound verbs." I'm like, I don't even know what. I've got no idea. I was looking for like maybe the character or beginning or something like that. Like, no, I looked at the teacher, and the teacher just said, "This is what I have to do. I have to." It's like box ticking. English lessons now, it seems to so many, it's like ticking boxes on the curriculum rather than getting kids writing and engaged in storytelling.
Yeah.
And so to get them to do that, I usually just, do that daft exercise that I'm so grateful you've been to see, but it just works. If you have an empty head and you just say the first thing that comes into it, you can come up with stuff on the spot very, very quickly. And especially if you've got some warped criminal minds like we have in the Northern Crime Syndicate.
Yeah. I mean, food poisoning and body chopping, I think we got through it.
It was, yeah. There was all sorts. And I'm just the shepherd there, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm not, none of that came from me. That was all they're doing.
Yeah. What's it like working with 6 other people and like that kind of thing?
It's brilliant because you've immediately got a sounding board, so if you're not sure about something, and there's so much about this industry that I haven't got a clue about, genuinely have no idea about, and now I've got those 6 people that I can go to and ask for advice with, because we're all at varying stages of our career as well, so and with varying, like some of us, like I've just done an audio only one, and I don't think anyone else has done that yet. So when we talk about audiobooks, I know I've got some information I can give them, whereas like I've not been in hardback yet, but all the other ones have, that kind of thing. So I can get some information about how we go about, coercing your publishers into getting hardback, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So there's it's constant learning curve, but they're great. I was over the moon. It was actually at Harrogate last year when it was Judith O'Reilly caught me in the beer tent and said, would you, obviously it would be the beer tent, wouldn't it? That was where we all were, wasn't it? So she said, would you pop outside, and said, I'm thinking about, trying to put together a northern super group. Would you be a part of it? And I was delighted, absolutely delighted to be asked. So yeah, it's been so much fun, and it's given us something to really focus on during lockdown as well. Something that we can really get our teeth into, and it's great. And some, what they're all doing as well. I think everyone in there is brilliant in their own right. It's great to be part of.
Yeah, of course, you got Trevor in there with some parallels with the Bracken course, because both soldiers or former soldiers.
Yeah. I think because it's Jimmy, his protagonist, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm trying to do anything I can to get a proof of the second, Jimmy book from him. But he's keeping stum so far. But no, it's great, and he's obviously had a fabulous year. On the New Blood panel at Harrogate last week, and he's and the book is brilliant. Deserves every single shred of success it gets.
Yeah, it's great. Have you thought what kind of minor characters you might put in, like dog or?
Yes, yeah. Well, in the third Ben Bracken book, he does end up looking after a dog called Bear, who's a little Jack Russell, and I thought maybe one day, you plant a seed, I will probably have him back at some point. We'll probably have him back. But yeah, I think that's the great thing, is you can think in those terms, can't you? You can, if there's someone I particularly like, we'll have him back. It's great, as long as I haven't killed him. That would be bad.
Have you ever killed somebody and wanted to bring them back?
Not yet. Although early thinking for Far From the Tree is that I might have got rid of someone that I could have done with.
Ooh. Intrigued.
Yeah, because there was quite a high body count in the end there, and yeah.
Yeah. Going back to Far From the Tree, I know you said that you got a background in amateur boxing. So, what was it like to create one of your characters to be a boxer?
Well, it was great, because I learned so much from the boxing gym, not just about the sport itself, but more about carrying yourself, and how everyone, certainly in a combat gym, you earn your respect in there, not outside. It doesn't matter what car you drive to get there. Inside, it's all about how you conduct yourself and the respect that you carry yourself with. And I really, really enjoyed that a lot. And I think that's helped me grow up a lot as well, boxing, actually. But I also didn't realize that I absolutely love getting punched. I just didn't know this about myself. And I love it when you're up against it, and you've got to try and fight to stay in it, to stay upright. But no, I definitely all of that's from experience. So in the fight, there's a knockdown. In my very first fight, I was knocked out in front of my friends and family. And that was it. There's a line in the book, as the world is tilting, the words in your head are, "This isn't the plan," and that was from real life. As I was going sideways, I was like, "This wasn't the plan," as I'm landing on the floor. But no, I enjoyed it, and it was great to tell a bit of a story about that. The quiet sort of boxing circles that exist out there that no one really knows about.
Yeah, have you ever been clobbered by a woman in the ring then?
Yes, I have. Yeah, definitely. Because we do mixed sparring, where it's just because it's all respect based. But I've been battered more times by women boxers than I've had hot dinners. So yeah, I've got, it's great. I love it. And it's all, equal opportunities battering Rob. Yeah.
Did you learn anything from your female boxing friends for the character that could make her more unique?
Yeah, definitely. Certainly in terms of mindset, because I will never take anybody for granted that I'm in the ring with, because you just don't know what skill set they have, and how hard they can hit. Whereas a lot of, when I've been involved in
Looks like we might have a problem. Yeah, he's frozen. I don't know if it's my end or his, but yeah. Um, hi guys, just gonna sort out some technical issues. Rob seems to have gone for a second.
Boxing to fight a lady, and then they get back from that.
Yeah. If you could just repeat your answer because we lost you for a second.
Oh, did you? I'm so sorry. Yeah, definitely. Of course, yeah. I took loads from my female boxing colleagues because they feel that they sometimes get judged on their appearance. And then when they get in the ring, you know, it gives them added impetus to set that right. So I love it when you get someone coming in the gym and they refuse to get in the ring with a lady. And then, you know, they do and they get absolutely battered. It's always, you know, it cuts them right down to size. And that's what we talk about. You know, we were talking about respect as well, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there are, you know, there are some men and women in the gym that I just will not get in the ring with. No way. No way.
Is there anything that you've been learning from your writing that you'd avoid, that you could tell new aspiring writers to avoid?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. I would. I'm not in a position in my career where I can tell anyone a definitive answer to anything. But there are a few things that I firmly believe in. I firmly believe in enjoying what you're doing. You know, if you're writing about something that you're not engaged with or not enjoying writing about, you'll tell. You know, it's obvious to me or to the reader. You know, if you're enjoying about what you're writing about, your writing will shine because of it. It will just naturally, you know. So stick to writing about something that you're engaged with. Write the kind of story that you want to write about, and trust your gut as well. Trust your gut. Go with what feels right. If it feels right to you, you're more often than not you're onto the right thing. We're surrounded by stories all the time, you know. Even, you know, you've got obviously your the books that we're talking about that are 400-page novels, right down to on your phone, you know, even like Bubble Witches about, like, you know, like the little apps on your phone about Candy Crush and whatever. Tiny little stories everywhere. Adverts on telly, the little doggy going down the stairs with a toilet roll. Everything's a story. So whether we like it or not, we've been teased and massaged and sort of trained in stories all our lives.
Yeah.
So we kind of know innately how they work. Trust yourself, go for it, get it down on paper. And, you know, don't sweat the small stuff. You know, don't worry about, oh, I've had no formal training whatsoever. You know, I was told I don't have any unique voice. There's nothing important. I'll never have anything interesting to say. Just ignore everyone. Just write the story you want to write and have a load of fun with it and see where you are after that. And if your writing shines, someone will notice.
Yeah. Speaking of small stories, because you've written in anthology for your publisher, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to do 2 this year. Yeah, there's the Loom crime anthology story, which is called Given in Evidence. Sorry, that's the name of the anthology. And I got the chance to write Ben Bracken's sort of origins, why he was definitively kicked out of the army in that one, which was great to set the record straight, even only for myself. So I've got a reference point to work from. And then the other one was for the Virtual Noir at the Bar anthology, which was just brilliant. What they've done is brilliant. So yeah, that was great.
What do you think you'll end up doing with the character for the Virtual Noir at the Bar thing? Because I think he's very unique.
Yes, well, that was me dipping my toe in the water of a different genre to see whether I fancied it, and it turns out I do really fancy it. So I'm gonna that's kind of like a prologue attempt for a full novel set on that. So yeah, I'm not done with that at all.
Yeah.
I had so much fun with it because suddenly, yeah, it's like we say about a blank canvas. Suddenly, I've got all this to go at. You know, I can write about anything here. Sorry,
Yeah.
Alex, I've just noticed a question over here from Caroline. Who's the most interesting person I've ghostwritten for? Um, I I can't, obviously contractually I can't name any names, but I've written for journalists, sports stars, soldiers, um, well, a footballer's a sports star as well. So yeah, and I can't say the word criminal, but alleged criminals. And I've loved every minute of doing that too, and I've made some amazing friends actually. Yeah, so but I can't name, and some of the stories, wow. But certainly the soldier, when I hope I get to talk about these, because these are going out. These will be published soon, and announcements will be made on certainly a few of those. And when certainly the soldier, when the first draft went in for it, looking at it came back, and so much had to have a big black marker through, and it took maybe 15,000 words out of the draft because so much of it had to be redacted for legal issues. So we've worked it all out, but it's amazing. It is amazing. Certainly what some people have done with their lives, and then you look at your own and go like, wow, I admire these people so much.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you that question, but I thought you'd say that. So
yeah, I can't, because you don't, ghostwriting being the word, like if I start telling everyone who I've done them for, I'm not, although it came along at a really good time as well, and it's meant that I can focus full time on writing, which is just, it has been the absolute dream. I'm so lucky to do it.
Have you learned anything like from character styles that you could use from ghostwriting? Because you're not allowed to tell, it means you've got more flexibility, doesn't it?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, no, definitely. It's certainly mindset. Definitely. Obviously, doing a military biography when I write about an ex-military man helps. And it helps certainly with where Ben Bracken's head might be at on certain topics. But certainly, some of the stories that I was told I couldn't even write them because my editors will say that's too far-fetched, but they actually happen to these people, so it's amazing. Like, for example, having to play rock, paper, scissors to find out who's going to run across a field that's got a machine gun firing at you across the whole lot of it. These stories, they're amazing. Yeah, they're absolutely amazing.
Yeah, crazy. What would you say is the most interesting thing that you've had to cut out of your novel because it's been libelous or something? Well, obviously you can't.
You're asking me a direct question there, Alex.
Yeah, because you can't say because it's libelous.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was. I've written a biography for a very prominent Indian journalist who's in his 90s now, living in London, and every Monday for the past all last summer, every Monday I would get the train from Warrington to Euston and go and sit with him in his favourite dim sum restaurant on Baker Street, and I'd sit there for 3 hours with him, hearing his life story while we shared a bottle of wine. And it was the best summer ever. It was so great. But he would tell me all the most outlandish stories about Indian politicians. And I'd say, I'm not sure I can put this in. And he'd say, don't worry about it. I'm 90. I'll be dead by the time this comes out. So he said, just go ahead, just do it. But he told me, he told me which politicians have, secret children in villages in India when they're married to high profile people over here and stuff, and oh dear, he gave me the dirt.
Yeah. It must be highly interesting because obviously writing a biography is a different thing to writing a novel. So
Yeah,
what's it like stylistically?
Stylistically, it's a huge difference, because, well, obviously, you pick either, I'm very simple in when I sit down to write something. I'll usually just pick a 3-act structure and go, right, we need the beginning here to go and have a bit of a crescendo here, and then we'll whip across this side, make sure that we ramp everything up, and then we'll go and have a nice denouement at the other end. Whereas with this, you can't really do that, because what if they did everything, up to the age of 25 that was interesting, and then just, had a quiet remainder to their life. You can't. So you have to you have to come up with structurally a way that you can attack this and sell it. Sorry, to tell the story in a way that people will read across 300 pages, and that's really difficult sometimes, But what I've realised through doing this is, you can always find something when you talk to your subject that makes them want to talk. Like something that they're really motivated by, and once they've started talking about it, you can say to them, like, well, would you like, can we put that in the book? And then they're like, yes, we'll do that. I mean, a case in point with the journalist, I asked him what he thought about the phenomenon of fake news. And he said, oh, don't get me started on that. And he went on to tell me that it's been there forever, that, people inventing stories to sell newspapers and whatever. And he told me a few examples from Indian history where that's been, mind boggling. and before we knew it, we had an extra 5,000 words to the book. So you can, there's all little tricks I'm learning as I'm going through here that, but again, there's no book out there that says, no instructional guide that says this is how you write a biography. Just like there isn't one that says this is how you go ahead and write a novel. It's just learn by doing.
Yeah. I mean, I do the write and shuffle method. It's a bit odd, but yeah.
What's that?
It's you write something and then you shuffle it around until it makes a story.
I like that. I'll go with that. Yeah. Because do you plan out or do you pants, Alex?
Both.
Right.
Because it depends entirely whether I'm writing a longer one or a shorter one, and I'm not really good at planning, so most of it's pantsing. But yeah.
Mate, I'm with you. I can't plan to save my life. I've got a notice board up behind me here that I bought for planning, and there's nothing on it because I always get bored because I like that excitement of what's going to happen next. It keeps bringing me back to the keyboard because if I don't know what's going to happen next, the reader will feel like that.
Yeah, I generally bought it up just to say thank you for next week. Yeah.
Oh, an absolute pleasure. I'm honoured, mate. Absolutely honoured.
Yeah, because next Wednesday I'm going to be on the bar and Rob will be reading it. So, yeah.
So excited, mate. So excited.
Yeah, it's a real challenge to write something that short. What's the shortest short story you've ever written and put out?
I don't know because I find shorts really challenging. Really challenging, because you want to make them satisfactory, don't you? You want the reader to feel like you've had, some kind of, I don't think payoff's the right word, but some kind of ending that gives satisfaction. And so I've been, I find it really tough. So that first one, the one we mentioned about Ben Bracken for Loon Books' anthology, that took me ages because I was so lost in the woods with that one, trying to make sure that it in itself had a beginning, middle and end that was of itself and not of a bigger story.
Yeah, because of course, with it being the origins, I'm sure you might be tempted to actually incorporate that into the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I could feel myself running away with it and writing a prequel.
Were you tempted to do that once you'd done it? Were you just tempted to just go and do it?
I am. Yeah, I still am in a way, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't know. There's so many stories I want to tell with Ben Bracken because sometimes there's places I want to take him and topics I want to make him look into. Like I was really interested in the fourth one, Till Morning Is Nigh, with the question of patriotism in this country and the question of the far right movement here, and how Ben Bracken might fit into and what his feelings on all that might be. Because certainly certain, patriotism has been hijacked in favour of certain ideals there and messages. And what if you are genuinely just patriotic, but you don't subscribe all the way in with certain beliefs? So, that was certainly an interesting way of exploring that. So there's loads of stuff I'd like to explore with Ben Bracken. And if I get bored, then maybe it's time to go take him all the way back to Afghanistan and see what he got up to there. I'd love there to be, I really do think there is a story there, that a major one for him. I really think there is.
I think that it'll be interesting to see you incorporate the Far From the Tree world with the Bracken world, because the universe idea.
Well, I did. Do you remember there's a character in there called Jeremiah Alex, who we met in the pub, who was the head of the National Organised Crime Command for the National Crime Agency.
Oh, the guy in the chair, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's Bracken's handler in the Bracken books.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we managed it.
What was it like doing that? Because
it was great because it made it feel part of a bigger picture for me, you know, because at the time, Far From the Tree was just a standalone then until I was offered the chance to write it as a trilogy, even though the stories and where I want to take it to are firmly part of a trilogy. When it came down to it, I mean, all the locations are real, and I'm really fond of Jeremiah now, and I just wanted him to be in it. It's sort of as simple as that. And then when I realised, oh, actually, he could be really useful in a story sense, then good, you know, well, he saved the day there, and I'm glad I didn't kill him off at some point.
Yeah, I know this sounds weird because most people that ask you these questions will have read them, but do you explain why he's in the chair?
Yes, we do. Yeah, that gives him that goes back to. I'd like to do an origin story of him too. Actually, would really like to, but no, it's I want this extremely powerful man who's an everyman character, and I want to show adversity being conquered constantly. You know what I mean? So this guy has got a burning desire to take down organized crime, and he's not going to let anything at all stop him. And I find him a brilliant character to write. I mean, so I don't. That's not me saying I think he's a brilliant character. That's me saying I enjoy writing him so much.
Yeah.
And he feels like a member of my family now. So you know. He's not in Ben Bracken 5 so much, but I've had to just get him in there because I want him in there. You know, I've had to find a way to get him in because he's part of the fabric of it now.
Yeah. We've only got about 3 minutes, so if there's any audience questions out there that'll be really burning, and somebody please ask.
I can see Caroline asked, did you spend time with military people to make sure I got all the facts accurate? The answer is for the first couple of Ben Bracken books, no, because I hadn't met the soldier that I did the book for by that point. So that helped when it came to writing the prequel, the prequel short story. But no, in the first two Ben Bracken books, he's never actually in Afghanistan at all during that period. Now, though, yes, I'd be much better equipped to talk about those things, definitely. Even the logistics of it, about, you know, I assumed naively that everyone was on Camp Bastion at one point. And there's loads of them, and they ferry in for a little bit, and, you know, you're not allowed to have any, you know, firearms on site or on your person while you're there. You have, you know, everything's locked away, etc. I found it interesting, but also that there's a McDonald's on there, you know, there's a KFC on there, you know, that kind of stuff. I didn't know about any of that, you know, so yeah, definitely will inform me for the future.
I'd love to know a little bit about the sequel to Far From the Tree, but of course, obviously, you can't tell me too much.
Well, no, I'll. What I can tell you is that it follows on. What can I tell you?
Yeah,
what can I tell you? It follows on from the last one, and yeah, I mean, because I don't want to give away spoilers for the end of Far From the Tree, so
I wouldn't. Yeah, ignore that question. Yeah, it's fine.
No, it's all right, but it does. It will definitely answer any questions that you have about any lingering. What's happened to that person?
Yeah.
You will get everything answered that you wanted, and there's a definite. I know exactly where I'm going in terms of the end point for the second book and where the trilogy finishes. So I know that the second is out. Well, I think we're going to aim similar time, so July 2nd, 2021.
Yeah.
And it's also out in print that same day as well with Loom Books. Loom Books have taken the print and ebook rights, so that same day there will be. In fact, I have a very early arc there. It's going to be out in print. Yeah, July 2nd next year, the same day that the sequel comes out in audio. And then, yeah, July 2022 is when the trilogy all gets finished off.
Yeah, wow. I'm just really curious as to how the title came about, because it's really strange. I think there's a theme somewhere.
Yes. Well, it's where the apple doesn't get too far from, isn't it? You
Yeah,
know, and it's about how can a man, you know, about men stepping out of their father's shadows. But what if the grip of that father's shadow is very severe? So, and yeah, there'll be a similar theme with the next book. The next book's title, that there'll be a proverb that I'll make a little play with, and the third one as well. In fact, when it became a trilogy pitch to Audible, I simply pitched one line of synopsis and a title to them for the other two books, and they said yes to those things. So I know the titles. I know in one line what happens, and that's it.
yeah. Is there any changes that you've made, because you know they've been written for audio? Because of course the style will be different, and of course you can put sound effects in and all sorts of weird things you can't do with the printed version.
Yeah, certainly some of the phrases, because once we got them, once we got Warren Brown, being an actor of his standing, involved, he got in touch with me and he wanted to know all about the characters, wanted to know the inside and outs on everybody, wanted to know what everyone sounded like in my head. He was so dedicated to this role, and it was fascinating. And you know, when you've written this, and it's just like a fantasy world in your head, and then you've got that guy ringing you up to ask what they, you know, and he'd say stuff like, well, where was he born? Like, I don't know. You know, that kind of thing. And then you have to think on the spot. And then certainly you realize that where he's going with it, you know that certain people might speak slightly differently. So there were, certain phrases that we amended, definitely, from the original manuscript to fit audio. And because it's different, obviously, speaking, isn't it? You know, speaking is different to reading. And he said that some things were a bit of a jumble, you know, to say out loud in a certain accent, that it's such a jumble that no one who has that accent would never actually say it. So we just said, right, we'll phrase it a different way then.
Yeah. I think we might have to finish there because we've gone past 8 now.
Well, it's just been brilliant.
Been lovely, yeah. Thank you for coming on tonight.
No, thank you for having me. And yeah, what you've been doing through lockdown on UK Crime Club has been amazing, mate. Thank you.
Thanks so much.